Italian Wine Podcast. Chin Chin with Italian wine people.
Welcome to another installment of On the Road edition hosted by Stevie Kim. This episode is part 2 of Stevie's visits to the Arnaldo Caprai Winery in Montefalco. Stevie continues her conversation with Marco Caprai, Arnaldo's son, and they enjoy a tasting of Caprai's wines.
Now, Marco, since we don't have very much time, I would like to drink a couple of your signature wines, and you give us a little bit of the history of your winery. So let's start with the white, because of course you are very famous for Sagrantino. You put Sagrantino on the map in the rest of the world, especially stateside. But there is a white grape, which is very symbolic also of your winery and this area. So what is that?
Grechetto, it's a typical grape of Umbria. In English, Grechetto, it's little Greek. In Italy, after the dominions of the Greek people in the south of Italy, the Greek grapes become very famous. And for the Roman, the wine from Greek was the most high quality wines. And for many centuries, there was the tradition in Italy to plant the Greek grapes. We have Greek grapes in Sicily, Grecanico. We have Greek grapes in Calabria, Greco, Puglia, Greco, Campania, Greco. It's a large family.
Yes.
And in Umbria, the same family have a clone of Greco that is called Grechetto, the small Greek.
But there's Grechetto di Orvieto and Grechetto di Todi, right?
Yes, this was two different clone of Grechetto.
Yeah.
And probably one of them, the Grechetto di Todi, it's also Pignoletto.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what Scienza says.
Yes,
French.
of course. And the Greco di Orvieto, it's a little more rich of structure. At the palate, it's more grass, and it's at the nose, it's more rich of white fruit. Il Grechetto, it's in Umbria, it's important grapes because it's the Grechetto also di Todi. Yeah. And in Todi they made a Grechetto little different to our style. Our style in the area of Montefalco is more fresh and is more fruity. And the style in Todi, it's a little more alcoholic, little more vertical. Different quality, but also different area.
When you say vertical, I love when people say it's vertical. What do you mean by that?
But vertical is when the wine is more rich of acidity and more rich of structure, not too large. Vertical, it's more rich of acidity.
Yeah, higher in acidity.
More fresh.
Yeah. Fresher. So listen, your Greco is called Grecante Colli Martani. Currently, is this the current vintage, 2021?
Yes.
Okay, so this is right now available in the market,
yes.
right?
It's available in the market.
How many bottles do you produce of this?
We produce of Grechetto about 150,000 bottles. Mm-hmm. That was less or more for the American market 12,000 cases. And for us, for Grecante, the American market is an important market. And we are in US, we are imported by Wilson Daniels, and they import our most important wine, like Grecante, Montefalco Rosso, and the Sagrantino.
Yeah, by the way, I was actually listening to your podcast with Alessandro Boga, who is our Italian wine ambassador, but also works for Wilson Daniels. And it's for our audience, it's podcast number 732. It has more than 5,000 listens right now. It's hard to believe. So check that out because they go kind of the deep dive into, of course, the Sagrantino, which we won't be doing today, but you can have a listen to that podcast, which was about a year ago, right?
Yes, less or more.
Yeah, more or less a year ago. And there, because we were listening, I made them listen to it while we were driving because I wanted to remember what you were saying. I asked you a question, right, in the very end. Do you remember what question I asked? No, you don't. Of course you don't. So let me remind you. I asked you if people who are unaware of Sagrantino, what kind of wine is it similar to? So we have answered that. If you want the answer, go to the podcast again. However, I'm going to ask you the same question today about Grechetto. People who are unfamiliar with Grechetto, what does it remind you of? Which is something more perhaps familiar, more popular, more international, if you will.
If there is a similar, I think it is in international world, I think it's more similar with the white wine of the Côte d'Or in France. It's more similar to Viognier than to the typical Chardonnay, Sauvignon. And this is an interesting story. Because we have made recently research, and there are a link between the story of Montefalco and the story of the area of the Rhône, the story of the area di Cornas, and we have a lot of similitude, and especially for the traditional grapes, and for the part for the Grechetto, but especially for the part of Sagrantino. And at the same of us, the area of the Côte d'Or, the appellation, the Châteauneuf du Pape, the Cornas, the characteristic was wine with an important tannino. And in the same way, Montefalco have the characteristic with the Sagrantino of wine rich of tannino.
Now let's go to your signature wine, which is Sagrantino. Okay, today we're tasting. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're tasting today? This is 2018.
Today we taste the 2018 Colle Piano.
Well, what is Colle Piano?
Colle Piano, it's a name that an ancient name for the countryside of Montefalco.
Is it here? Can we see it from here?
Yes, because there is the hot plain. The Colle Piano, it's the hill plain. Quindi an area that is not a plain, but not it's a mountain in a hot plain, in the mid.
It's kind of like an oxymoron. Like it's on a hill but on a plain.
Yes.
Okay.
And the wine.
But is it like a plateau?
Yes, a plateau, but on the hill, up on the hill. And the story, this wine, it's a blend of the different vineyards of Arnaldo Caprai. And today Arnaldo Caprai have the vineyards in 4 different parts of Montefalco. And in 4 different parts around the village of Montefalco, at the same mode la Rosa dei Venti. Quindi we have the vineyards at north Montefalco, south Montefalco, east Montefalco, and west. And this gave to us the possibility every year to make a great wine with the characteristic of Montefalco. Quindi is a sort of Montefalco di Montefalco.
Okay.
Sagrantino grapes is an ancient grape.
How ancient? Like very, very old, right? Like the medieval old.
We tried the first trace about around the 15th century. And,
15th century?
Yes. And the grape was even considered something of special. The name Sagrantino became from the Latin descendants sacer, quindi sacro, sacramento, vino della festa.
So there is
Wine
a
for the
religious
special day.
There's a religious tonality, right?
And in the church of
Maybe, yeah.
San Francis in Montefalco. We are very close to Assisi, the city of San Francis. And in the church of Montefalco, the church of San Francis in Montefalco, in a table, we have a decanter of crystal, and in the decanter there is the red wine. Quindi Montefalco, it's an appellation of great red wine.
So listen, can you give me kind of an overview? Give me some numbers about your company. How many labels? How many red wines? How many white wines? How big is your estate?
The company today we manage about 200 hectares of vineyards.
200. And is it mostly around your winery?
50% is around the winery.
And mostly Sagrantino and Grechetto
And Sangiovese.
and Sangiovese.
Less or more, one third.
But most of your Sagrantino is 100% Sagrantino. So where are you using the Sangiovese?
Sangiovese because we
IGT.
No, we made the Montefalco Rosso. We have two different appellations for red wine in Montefalco. We have the appellation of Montefalco, and Montefalco is an appellation of 70% Sangiovese, 15-20% Sagrantino, and other red grapes. And for us is a very important appellation. Is a DOC, and after we have the Montefalco Sagrantino, is another different appellation, and is a DOCG, and is 100% Sagrantino. Sagrantino, it's our special wine, and also the name became from the story that Sagrantino became from the Latin design sacer. Quindi probably Sagrantino is arrived from a very far country, and we don't know
Where it's coming from.
but there is two possibilities. One possibility is the possibility that it's arrived from the west, and is unusually. Another one possibility is that it's arrived from east, from the Mediterranean, from the Scienza. Explain to us the two different current of the way,
yes.
The two different way of the grapes. First with the Babylon, after with the Phoenix, and after with the Greece, and after with the Romans, and after with the Catholic Church, the diffusion in the world of the production of the wine.
So do you want to finish telling me before you go? So you have 200 hectares. And how many labels do you have?
200 hectares, about 20 different labels.
20 different labels.
And
how many more red, mostly red, right?
60% red wine, 40% white wine. And
do you make any sparkling wine?
Not in Montefalco, but we started about 10 years ago a small project in the mountains area of Umbria, in the area of Gubbio, together with a friend of mine. And we started a small production with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Yeah, because you can't grow Chardonnay and Pinot. Are
Are
you growing Pinot yet?
Yes, but
because I remember drinking your new Pinot. That doesn't come from here, right?
It's we produce in Montefalco a Pinot Noir
you do?
For red grapes, for red wine. Different because in Montefalco the harvest of Pinot Noir it's about the mid of August. In Gubbio the harvest of Pinot Noir for the classic, for the metodo classico, it's about the 15th of September.
But is it higher in altitude, Gubbio?
In altitude, because the vineyards is from 700 meters to 900 meters.
Oh my God, that's really high.
It's a very small vineyards because it's 8 hectares.
But that's experimental. For
8
10
hectares is not experimental,
10
but
hectares?
8 hectares.
Oh, 8. Yeah, that's still substantial.
It's a small project, but it's a project for the mountains area of Umbria, and it's a project to combat the problem of the people that left the countryside. It's the same that what we have do in the 70 years in Montefalco, when the people left the countryside. Today the situation is the same for the Apenninic area. After the 2 earthquakes of the last 25 years. And the people don't want to restart again to build the house, to maintain the project of the life in an area where every 20-30 years the earthquake destroy the dream of the life.
Okay, so one last question. So you have about 20 labels, 20 wines. I know all of the wine producers think like all of the different wines are like their children, right? But if you were to choose one, which one is your favorite, or which one is more resembles Marco Caprai, the person?
Today I have 2 sons,
How old
2
are they?
boys that have 12 and 13 years old. But my first son is the Sagrantino. And
His name is Sagrantino?
No, is the Sagrantino.
Oh, okay. So you have 3.
And for me,
then the real
my
children.
favorite wine for a lot of for the symbolic story, for the story of my life is the Sagrantino.
No, but which label? Which wine?
The label Colle Piano for me is an important label, and after the 25 anni is the label that I have a particularly affect because I've changed my life, the life of Montefalco, and was the first great wine that was recognized by all the international press and transformed Montefalco in one of the wine destinations more important of Italy.
Do you have Michel Roland as your fine winemaker consultant?
It's our special consulting. We have a great team in the winery, a great team of enologists, and was a young team. And for a young team, it's important to have a great professor like Attilio for the viticulture, but a great professor like Michel Roland for the viticulture, for the wine.
But what is he? Is he consulting for all of the wines or some specific labels?
No, he's a consultant for all.
Okay, all right. Chin chin. Marco, thank you for having
Salute.
us. Chin chin with Italian wine people, and it's a wrap, ragazzi. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time. For more fascinating interviews from the world of wine, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com or find us on SoundCloud, Himalaya, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. Chin chin, and thanks for listening.